Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with X-23 issue 1. And if I had to recommend anyone to take over the X office at Marvel, it would definitely be Craig Kyle and Chris Yost, or Christopher Yost. All the X books that I read that these guys wrote, because they were highly involved in, I think it was the Messiah Complex, and then, of course, they created X-23, which is what we're going over. This is, just so y'all know, this isn't the first appearance of Laura Kinney. I believe that was NYX issue 3 or something like that, and that's way later down the road when she's older, and she's essentially working as a mutant prostitute in the X District, which ties into Extreme X-Men. Anyway, but what's important about this book is this reveals her origin. Now, going back to why I say Christopher Yost and Craig Kyle, if you go back and read their X-Force run, as well as this Innocence Lost, they got what Chris Claremont was talking about. Again, I've referenced this several times, and I'm going to do it again. Go on, it's either Amazon or YouTube. Go watch Chris Claremont's X-Men. And Fox came to Claremont asking how to make it work on screen. And he said, focus on their lives, the drama of their lives. The rest, the action, everything else is just cake on top. And that's, again, I've said this before, that is why the first couple of films just took off like gangbusters, because they followed what he said. And that's what we do here. This first issue, we don't even see Laura. This takes years past. This right here is supposed to be the opening of kind of following Barry Windsor-Smith's Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X. I don't remember the issues, but it was the early 90s, I think 91. And this just shows Wolverine escaping. Now, I get what they were trying to do. The only flaw in this book that I see is they show Logan killing this man as he's disappearing into the snow. If I were the creative team, what I would have done is instead, because again, what we find out is this gentleman here was friends with the doctor that died. His name was, I don't remember off the top of my head, Del Rice. And this man, he goes, I'm sorry, Del. I hope it never come to this. So they've come to retrieve all the information post Wolverine escaping. Now, I don't remember the original guy's name off the top of my head from Barry Windsor-Smith's run, but he was the doctor that got recruited with through it was Cornelius. That was his name. I feel like to keep continuity's sake without retconning and adding stuff, because you come to this gentleman here telling this boy that his father has died. And there's a sweet moment, and it helps with the emotional resonance later in this story. But again, instead of making a whole new character, they should have made this kid the son of Cornelius or something like that. I feel like that would have tied in a little bit better. But other than that little continuity error aside, you come to find out that this kid, whose name is Xander or something like that, he's now working and taking his place as his father. See that he's wearing his father's dog tags. And he's sort of a mad scientist. At first you think, like, Clear, come on. But what it is you find out that he's just as much the mad doctor as his father was. They're trying to recreate the Weapon X project, and no one that they take is adhering to the adamantium bonding process like Logan did. So through all his failures, you can see, again, years later, there's the boy that this man was hugging, and now they're working together. And yes, his name is Xander. They've introduced this new character, which is Dr. Sarah Kinney. Last name sound familiar, folks? And he says that she's the leading, what do you call it? My brain's just not clicking on all cylinders today. The leading charge in genetics, which I get it, but at the same time, it's like I thought that was Moira McTaggart's title. Maybe US-wise, I don't know. But still, she's top in genetics. So what they're talking about is instead of trying to get fresh specimens off the street, she says she's going to take the DNA, which, if we go back to the beginning of the book, this briefcase that he retrieves from his friend Del, they're going to take that. It's a Wolverine. It's basically a straight DNA sample of Logan. Now, before we go any further, I'm glad I flipped back because we need to talk about who made this book. Story by Craig Kyle. Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost writers. Billy Tan pencils. John Sibal inks. Brian Haberlin colors. Chris Eliopoulos lettering. There's everyone else that was working on the book. And then Joe Quesada was still the editor-in-chief. And X-23 was created by Craig Kyle. Now, moving forward, he finally acquiesces and agrees. So what they find out about the DNA strand is that the Y chromosome, I think it's the X chromosome, was damaged. And so every time they try to recreate the DNA strand of Wolverine, it keeps breaking. And she goes, so for every enzyme, every codon, for every sequence was repaired or even built back from near nothingness, it seemed to be missing 1 million more chromosomes is what she's getting at. And you can see that she is just a woman obsessed. And she talks about how she enjoyed the work. It says, but I felt alive. The work, the failure, the challenge. It was like a brilliant light shining inside of me. I felt like my life had purpose. But what she decides, since the cloning process isn't working, is to actually make a child. Saying that if we do an embryo, we can make basically a twin. We won't be making Wolverine, but we'll be making a twin. It'll be a female because the Y chromosome's damaged. But in a semi-subtle, but kind of on the nose hint, they're showing the backlash against, well, you can't have a female. And I like the way that it's presented because it doesn't feel preachy or anything like that. It's very well written and showing how she's going to take no shit from nobody. And it's very enjoyable because they said, keep doing what you're doing. And she's like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So she goes behind their back. She goes, I was defiant in the race, in the face of my failures. I was determined to succeed out of spite. Screw 'em. She goes, I feel like I was living 2 lives. And eventually presents her findings. And he's like, I explicitly told you not to. I've done my job. If I continue to pursue a male solution, you should have a working, reconstituted specimen, about 6 to 10 years. You have a viable female specimen now. It's your call. And just the look. Proceed. And Xander, you can see how he slowly starts slipping and slipping more because he's losing more and more control over the project, which, one of the things, spoilers abound right here, is Xander's charged with having to find someone who will take the embryo. Well, what he does is he breaks in on her and he goes, you're unsanctioned. An unexpected breakthrough has put us both in a bit of a bind. I mean, where are we supposed to find a female candidate with necessary physiology needed to carry a clone? And the way that he's presented the dark shadows, what are you talking about? And it clicks. You can't be serious. What's it going to be, Sarah? You play mommy or your little side project doesn't survive the night. Your choice. So here, again, the origin of Laura. They watched my every move, treated me like a specimen because I was now part of the project. So again, she's supposed to be raising a weapon. So you see she's reading Sun Tzu's The Art of War here. But I like how she, in this, you find out eventually that this is like her diary or she's writing a letter. She goes, but they didn't see everything. Now listen to this. I love this little bit of foreshadowing. Oh, I'm tired of always being a marionette, cried Pinocchio, disgusted. It's about time for me to grow, as everyone else does. I want to be a real person rather than a wooden boy. So you see that even though it shows that she's reading The Art of War, she's actually reading Pinocchio to her child. And will you, if you deserve it? Really, Pinocchio exclaimed, tell me, what can I do to deserve it? Right there, being a father. Like when I first read this, I hadn't had my child yet. So this broke my heart from a standpoint of empathy to a degree. But now that I have my son, this book, it was hard to hold back tears while I was reading this because you know what's going to happen and what life holds for poor Laura Kinney. Innocence Lost is not for the faint of heart. It is a hard read. And there's a line in here as she's writing these memoirs or this letter to her daughter. She goes, I initially asked you to forgive me, but now I'm saying, please don't forgive any of us for what we've done to you. So guys, if you've never read this, either get all the single floppies. Like, this is a reprint, sadly. I wish this was an original. But this was a reprint, which is exciting, so I can at least have a reader copy. Or do what I did initially, is went back and got all the collected trades. And that's why I said, kind of just going through what we sort of touched on here. This is why Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost should be X-writers right now compared to the Krakoan storylines that we're currently getting. So with that said, guys, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is you like to pick up your books and grab a copy. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little X bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with you all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.